Whether or not you're a new player or a seasoned veteran, there's always new things to learn about Stellaris. It is a big game. There's a lot of things being thrown at you at all times. Still though, some of these features kind of go under the radar. So let's take a look at some of the things that you may have missed about the game. Building structures on planet can be annoying, especially considering the build list can be rather large. In this particular case, it's not that bad just yet, but in the end of the game, this list is going to be so big, it's becoming a pain in the ass to actually navigate. Thankfully, there is these handy dandy little buttons on the top that will allow you to quickly navigate to the different types of buildings. For instance, pop assembly buildings, which allow you to build robots, or governmental buildings for precinct housing or administrative buildings, or most importantly, manufacturing. Yes, a little icon will allow you to essentially take a look at what's going on over here. Mining and resourcing, also very, very useful. Keep an eye on this particular selection of buildings, because it will make your life a lot easier in order to find out on what on earth is going on. Let's say you want to automate a planet, because yes, you can totally do so. I've got Isle 2 right now selected, and with this particular button, we can automate the planet. And essentially what it will do is, based on its designation, we can click on the designation button to give it a designation and essentially focus on what we want this planet to do. The planet will then start automatically building up what you need. However, there is a lot more granularity to this, because if you right-click on this, and it does say it in this handy-dandy tooltip, even though a lot of people are not going to see that, the automation settings menu opens up. And essentially what it will do is it will give you the option of saying, hey, is the AI that is automating this planet, will it allow to upgrade buildings? Does it focus on amenities? Does it focus on rare resources? Etc, etc, etc. There's a lot of different variables here, and if you have a planet and you're thinking by yourself, okay, this planet does not need rare resource production because I want to keep the building slots open, you can just disable that. I don't need more housing on this planet, or I don't want them to focus on building slots, so they're only focused on districts. Yeah, you can do that. That's all available within the game, but it's not really well communicated. And going through the automation settings can be really useful if you have a very large and sprawling empire with dozens of planets that you don't want to micromanage the entire time. I've been in that situation myself, especially with habitats. It can be a real pain, but what you can do there is just automate the place. And then go into the automation settings and turn off or on what you want. And the sky is the limit. It's very powerful. Give it a go. Have some experimentation time with it. Because especially when you have a million habitats, as I mentioned before, then yeah, automation can be a godsend. We've talked a little bit about pops already, but there is one pop that a lot of people seem to ignore or just don't know about. Yes, I am talking about the elusive Slums Pop. The Slums Pop ASpec, what are you talking about? Well, on every single planet, at least in most types of empires, there is this little button called Features. Now, Features will show you what is on this planet, what is giving it the districts that you need in order to build things on. However, on most starter planets, you will also have something called Sprawling Slums. And Sprawling Slums does one of the best things that you can do in the start of the game, and that is get a pop for free. It will cost you 300 energy, which is totally worth the investment. And as soon as you do it, and as soon as the timer runs out, you will have yourself a free pop that you can spend on any of your buildings or districts. And don't get me wrong when I say this, a singular pop is so good, because they can generate the resources that may help you not to fail. And having the Sprawling Slums enabled is just so very nice. In addition to that, I would also recommend building a research lab as one of the first things that you do, because getting more science is always good. And on top of that, that pop that comes out of the Sprawling Slums, well, it will immediately start working there. Sooner rather than later, you'll be poised with the following question, and that is traditions available. Which tradition are you going to take as a player early on in the game? Well, there's a couple of great options. We can select any of these, and all of them will do all sorts of miraculous things. Especially expansion and discovery are very high on the list. However, discovery has a perk which makes it objectively probably one of the best options within the game. And that has to do with Map the Stars, which is a special edict that is unlocked after picking Discovery. So in my personal opinion, taking discovery early on is always the must-have. And that has to do, as I mentioned, with Map the Stars. Because Map the Stars essentially increases your survey speed, which allows your science ships to find out more about your surrounding area, and as we always say, knowledge is power. In addition to that, there's also a 10% chance of finding an anomaly. Now, anomalies can range from just giving you a bunch of resources in space to insane deals with all sorts of creatures that live on those planets. Can you potentially get brain slugs through this? Absolutely. Getting a higher chance of getting events is so good, and you should always try to go for Map of the Stars, especially in the early game when a lot of the galaxy is still undiscovered. Always take Map the Stars. It is so good. It's probably one of the best things you can do at the start of the game. It will allow you to see more of the galaxy. It will give you more content to play with as a new player. And on top of that, it is just fun to find new stuff in space. So yeah, traditions, discovery, Map the Stars. Go and do it. You will not be disappointed. Prioritization of building stations in space is actually really important. One thing that the Cepheus update brought in is the joys of auto construction. But auto construction basically does the following. It finds a target and it builds a station on it, whether or not it be energy or whether or not it be science or minerals, etc. Now this does bring with it a couple of problems, and this is something you probably don't want to use until the early mid-game or the late start of the game. There's a couple of reasons behind that, and that has mostly to do with return of investment. A station will cost you 100 minerals. If I had built, for instance, a station over here at Triton, it will cost me 100 minerals, and for every month I will get 3 minerals back. That will cost 33 months in order to get a return on investment. 33 months is a long time. Therefore, you usually want to prioritize the high return of investment items first. Venus, in this particular case, has a resource output of 5 every single month, which means that in 20 months it will pay for itself, and then every month afterwards it will continuously pump resources into the system. These are things that you need to think about, because sometimes you will have a planet in space somewhere and it will only output 1 mineral a month. 100 months is a long time, so you kind of don't want to pump in minerals into those places when you're in a mineral crunch, essentially. Focus on the high returns versus the low returns before you do anything when it comes to infrastructure. In the Cepheus expansion, there has been an update to the science ships, and that is the automatic surveying being part of the base game, or at least the initial features that are part of your systems. They can be found down here in the automatic survey button within the science ship UI, but I would highly recommend not to use this until a later point in the game and you've already managed to find out what is going on nearby. Usually you will still want to survey planets that are nearby and essentially go ahead and try to survey these. Of course, you can right click and go ahead and survey system, but classically there is a better approach to this, and that is selecting the survey button, holding down the shift key, and then essentially queue up all of these nodes, and your science ship will automatically start sciencing the heck out of all of these places. This is incredibly useful and essentially takes a little bit of micromanaging off of your hands, because as soon as the science ship would be done normally, if they would be just surveying a system over here, then they would need new orders. In addition to that, if you are in an area of space and you think, okay, I need to know what's going on over here really quickly, and I don't necessarily want to survey everything on the way there, the option that you can have is to explore this system. What this does is that sends the science ship right over towards this particular area, and essentially we'll take a look on what is going on in this system. What kind of planets are over here? What kind of stars are in this area? And most importantly, what are the hyperlane connections? Essentially, it's a fast move order that will allow your science ships to very quickly traverse towards your intended area. You can then go ahead and survey that system and work your way back, or if you're really smart, you will have another science ship ready to go and essentially fill the gaps in behind you. It's usually a good idea to get choke nodes and the general lay of the land under control really early on so that you know where to focus on, especially if a megastructure, for instance, spawns somewhere and you want to take control of that very, very quickly. Of course, sometimes you will need to do something else, but you don't want to lose your queue. Instead, what you can do there then is hold the shift control key and essentially survey another system. In this particular case, and this applies to a lot of things within the game. So for instance, you can go and survey this system as well. Control shift is essentially a prioritization item. It moves whatever you have selected up onto the list of priorities. So for instance, let's say that I've surveyed over here and I've surveyed over here, etc. All those priorities will go first. So with Control Shift, essentially, if I have an option that I immediately want to investigate, it will go straight on the top of the list, and then it will continue along its previously indicated path. You can end up with these really strange networks of stuff that is going on in terms of like these nodes and where ships are going, etc. But this is something you do not need to worry too much about. Sometimes you want to go to war with an enemy, and you kind of want to know what their economy is like, but you can go to their planet, and basically you'll have a good idea of what their economy is like, but you don't really have all the key information that you need. These guys are currently protective to me, but it doesn't mean that I don't want to know what sort of resources they have. Sure, I can see their fleet, so they got 5,000 fleet power, but I want to know how many alloys do these guys have to crap out a fleet in a nanosecond. Well, there's a way of doing so. If we go to the trade offer deal, then we go to resources, we can effectively use this to see every single resource that they have available. If we go into alloys and then Control Shift click, we can essentially see, okay, they have 690 alloys available. That's enough for a cruiser, essentially. Sure, they won't trade it with us because for a variety of reasons, obviously, but it gives us a good indication of what kind of resources they have available. How much food do these people have? Well, it looks like they've got a lot, 7,816. That means that if we take down one of their food worlds, we're not going to be causing any problems for them anytime soon. So having this sort of information can be very useful when it comes to figuring out what is going on in the greater galaxy. At the start of any Stellaris game, you will be immediately prompted with these three icons at the top of the screen. These are your technology items, and they are arguably some of the most important ones, or at least decisions you will make in the game. And of course, we will need to make the right decisions right off the get-go, not to slow down. Now, one thing that is really important in general is making sure that we focus on research. At the start of the game, if you have the option to get science boosting technologies, then make sure you get them. They are incredibly good and they are very, very strong. Sometimes in the physics department, you will have the option to get research speed +5. This applies to all technologies, which is arguably better than the quantum theory options, which gives a boost to science of 20% in the research category, or at least the physics research category. So either of these is usually quite good. In this particular case, however, going for research speed +5 in all categories is definitely the one you want to pick. If this one is not available, however, make sure you try to get quantum theory for the boosts. And whenever you have the opportunity to do so, if you have another science technology that becomes available, always take it, because if you have a boost in a certain category, you can get more science, which means there's compounding effects. And as they say, compound interest is the most powerful force in the galaxy. Hi, it's Editing ASpec over here. Of course, there's going to be situations where you find yourself pop growth technologies. You'll want to go for those as a priority, because pop growth is king, and the more of it you have. If you don't, then go for the science. Back to the video. I hope these tips and tricks were illuminating and that you learned something today. And if you're ready to put them to the test, feel free to go and check out the One Pop Challenge. Can you run an empire and win the game with only having a single pop on a planet in your empire? A one pop? Yeah, it's possible. It's very janky, but you can do it. Go and check out the video. We'll see you over there. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, my name has been ASpec. Thank you to my patrons, and good luck with Stellaris.